how does one begin to conceptualize where the world is heading over the next 10 years?
Well, I can't imagine wanting to be alive at any other time. I mean, we talk about the Anthropocene, where human beings, first time in history, we have the ability to actually shape the future of humanity and our role on the planet that we're on. That's pretty extraordinary. And, what does that mean? I think that means that governments and governance will look radically different than anything that we have lived with. We've lived for all of our lives, for 50 years, you and I on average now, we've lived in a fairly stable system. The Soviet Union collapsed, US was in charge, China's had an extraordinary rise, but generally speaking, the global order today still looks more or less like the global order you had 50 years ago. Henry Kissinger recognizes it, right? He was 50, now he's 100. But it feels like geopolitics still function the way they used to. You've got heads of state, you've got governance, you still have the UN, you've got the IMF, you've got the World Trade Organization, you've got these big things that more or less, I was just at the Security Council. Security Council is kind of the same Security Council we had before from the 70s, but whatever. It's not, it's the rules, the UN Charter, it's all there. You could have been born a long time ago. In 10 years' time, I think we'll still recognize the tectonics on the planet. I think the demographics we can talk about. We can talk about how Japan will be smaller and how China's peaked out and how India's growing, and that we pretty good sense in that. Climate, we've got a pretty good sense of what climate's going to look like and extreme storms and the rest. But government, how government works, how the geopolitics work, how the world is ordered, ruled, I think it's going to look radically different in 10 years. I really do. Certainly in 20, but probably in 10. I think that a big piece of the power that determines who we are and how we interact with people will be driven by a very small number of human beings that control these tech companies that may or may not know what they're doing, and that may or may not be with intentionality, and we don't really know what their goals are. And those goals can change, right? I talked a little bit in my TED Talk, which I haven't really talked much about, which is kind of good, I talked a little bit about how, when you and I were raised, it was nature and nurture. And that determined who we were. And that now, for the first time in humanity, we are being raised by algorithm. And that we have a whole generation of kids whose principal understanding of how to interact with society will be intermediated by programmed algorithms that have no interest in the education of that child. That is a subsidiary impact of what they are trying to do, those algorithms, what it is trying to do. And a lot of the interactions that will take place with those kids will be AI interactions, not just intermediated, but the actual relationship will be with AI. Which, by the way, if I could wave a magic wand and do one regulation in the world today, I would say anyone under 16 cannot interact with an AI directly as if it were a human being, unless it's under direct human supervision. Because I just don't want people to be raised by anything other than people until we understand what that means.
Even at the level of education?
Again, I want that to be directly controlled by, supervised by a person. So yes, I think education, I think a doctor, I'd love to have AI being used, for medical, on medical apps for kids. But I'm saying if you're having a relationship with something, including with a teacher, I don't want kids to have a relationship with an AI educator unless it's overseen by an adult, until we know what it does to the kids. We just don't know. We just don't know. And I worry about that a lot. I don't have kids. If I had them, I'd worry about that. I know my mom wouldn't have allowed that, and thank God for it. So yeah, I think that we're going to be different as human beings. You talked about Yuval Noah Harari recently, who I find very inspirational as a thinker. And this homo deus concept that he comes up with. I think that young people today are already something a little different from Homo sapiens. And I don't know exactly what that is. None of us do, because we're running the experiments on them now. I'm not comfortable with that.
Please make sure to like the video and subscribe to our channel. Leave us a comment down below about what topics you would like to see covered next. Thanks for watching.